Hi, my name is Laurie Bullock, and I'm going to be talking about journalism and urban ministry and how my passion for journalism prompted me to fall in love with the city of LA, and how the city of LA prompted me to serve it better through urban ministry. And so before I get into that, I want to talk about how I even came into really loving urban ministry and journalism, because I joke that I stumbled into journalism and urban ministry because when I was applying for Biola, I was planning on becoming an English major, and then mainly because I loved stories and I loved writing and I wanted to be better at both of those. And then my uncle made a really snarky remark about English majors over Christmas break, and I decided to shift my focus to journalism because I could still write, I could still better my writing, and I could still be in stories, but have more direction in my career field. And so that was one of the best decisions that I possibly could have made, and that God really just blended all of my favorite things of writing and listening to people share stories and sharing stories with other people, and just into one job, and that has been incredible. And it is also the reason why I've been able to really have a passion for urban ministry, because it started with being able to be enrolled in Literature of Los Angeles class with Larry Smith. Had I been an English major, I wouldn't have been able to be enrolled in that class. And so learning about Los Angeles and its people and the history and everything that class taught really sparked my interest in LA and in journalism as well. And so my experience with journalism started with the Chimes, and I wrote for the sports section for 3 years, and my favorite thing about the sports section was being able to write features about the lesser known positions or the looked over players who were very important. So the setter in volleyball always gets a touch on the ball, but she doesn't get the glory of the libero who saves the ball from touching the ground, or the middle blocker who slams it down on the other side of the court. But she is so important but looked over, and she still does her job. And while it's awesome to be able to interview high profile people as a journalist, it's also so important to recognize the everyday people in your culture and in your community, because that's what actually makes the community thrive, and those are the most important people and who give structure to your city that you love and that you're reporting for. And so as I started getting more into journalism and learning more about LA, I read a book by the Los Angeles Times columnist Miles Corwin, and he wrote a book called And Still We Rise, which is about 12 inner city kids who are in the gifted program at Crenshaw Heights. And one of the things that I loved most about the book was actually the foreword. And he said, this isn't a book about that's going to remind you of freedom riders. There are teachers who are really rough and who aren't that great, and then there are kids who come from all different backgrounds. Some come from really wealthy backgrounds, some come from poor backgrounds, some have families who are together and healthy and supportive, and some don't have any family, and some are going to rise above the circumstances and some won't. And I want you to come into this come into the story better than I did, because I came with my own expectations and was proven wrong through each kid. And And so that's something that I really loved and took to heart, because I love information, and I love like trying to like be as prepared as possible as a type A personality. And the thing about journalism and urban ministry is you can prepare as much as you like think it's necessary. You can study the history of your area, and you can, for urban ministry, and like think you know everything, but until you're in that situation and like starting to interact with the people in your district, you are going to be surprised, and you're going to like learn things from them that you could never have learned from research. And same with journalism, you can get all the background to the profile that you're going to do on this person, but once you start interviewing them, they're going to reveal things through stories, and it's best to welcome those surprises. And so in urban ministry, as I said, I was very influenced by Larry Smith's class, and I took literary journalism the next semester, and I was approached by Larry to be a volunteer for Young Life in Boyle Heights in East LA. And it was after reading And Still We Rise, I felt a call to love the city of Los Angeles unselfishly, because I had loved Los Angeles because of all the experiences that it gave me, and all the fun memories and stories and great food and coffee that I was experiencing in LA, but I wasn't giving back to the community, and that isn't a Christ-like or real love at all. And so being able to serve the community through becoming a Young Life leader was one of the most tangible ways that I could do that. And one of the most humbling experiences in doing that was realizing that I'm not the first to bring in light to the students' lives. I think that Biola has told us that they're equipping us to bring light into the workplace, and they do that. I believe that Biola has taught us that, but we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves as students to go into the workplace and think we're the first ones to bring Christ in. But through working with Young Life, I realized that Jesus was already in LA, and he was already there at the very beginning of LA, and he has welcomed me to like play a part of him being in LA for this season, and he's going to remain in LA when and if I leave the city. And so it takes a lot of pressure off me, and I don't have to speak. I don't have to like go in talking. I can come in to the club that we have for kids and just listen to them, and that is way more effective than speaking and trying to like push light because it's already there. There's a huge temptation to romanticize both urban ministry and Los Angeles. It is a beautiful skyline, and it's okay to enjoy that beauty. However, it's one of like my stumbling blocks was romanticizing how it's an up and coming city, and how it's like, and it's great that it's trying to improve, but it is a very gritty city. You can be in the arts district and like see all these amazing like hip people doing great things, and then just a few blocks over is the beginning of Skid Row. And so it's a melting pot with different stories and different people that you have to recognize aren't always beautiful, and it's okay. They're still very significant even in the ugliness of it. In preparing for this speech, I watched the entire Together LA conference that Biola put on about a year ago. I watched the videos, and there was a pastor in East LA named Albert Tate, and he talked about ministry looking a lot like the boy who had 5 loaves and 2 fish, and when Jesus fed the thousands, and how the boy could have just seen this like very small basket and been like, this will feed my family, we'll go home, and that's fine. Like, I'll sustain my family, because I can't help out in any way, even though I have a little bit. Instead, he gave what he had to Jesus, and Jesus used that. And Albert Tate said, whatever the Lord is doing, whatever the Lord is stirring in you to do, while engaging in the city, give it to Jesus and get out of the way. And so for me, it's been realizing that God has given me the talent to write and edit stories and to listen, and a love of journalism, and those are good things, and those are my very small, like 5 loaves and 2 fish, and I can give that to him and let him feed however many he wants. And it could just be me influencing one person who will influence another person who will go out and influence 5,000, but not to get so caught up in numbers, which is very important. And numbers are often romanticized in urban ministry as well. So in loving Los Angeles in a responsible way and loving journalism in a responsible way, it's recognizing that your calling will often lead you to uncomfortable places, and that as Christians, I think we believe our calling will just fit us and it'll be perfect and it'll all align. But I think that God's calling for us does use our skill sets, definitely, but he brings us to uncomfortable places so that we don't take the glory from him in our calling, and that we see his work and his doing in our calling, and loving a city that does have a lot of darkness and does have a lot of grief and is trying to better itself is uncomfortable, and you have uncomfortable conversations and you're in uncomfortable situations with people who are grieving and hurting, but you shouldn't shy away from that, and you should listen to people, because that's the thing that everyone really wants. And so as I graduate and go into the real world, I hope to get a job in Los Angeles, but if not, I hope to continue to work in Young Life and to listen to people's stories and to just be in people's lives, because that's the most beneficial and sacrificial way to love.